Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea podcast here on my YouTube channel. Of course, my name is John Campea, and this is my daily show, taking all types of topics from the worlds of movies and television, and entertainment, and other various things, and mostly taking the questions and topics that you guys send in to me. And that's what we're going to do here today. I have picked out 6 questions that you guys have sent in to me, 6 topics that you can see in the description of this video if you want to get a little bit of a sneak peek as to which topics are coming up here today. How do you get a question to me? It's simple. Just email me anytime at thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. That's thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. Send on in those questions and topics. I take about 5, 6, 7 of them every single day. Now, before I get started, though, on those topics and questions that you guys sent in, a couple of pretty significant things. First of all, how about that Game of Thrones finale last night? I won't give any spoilers away here, just in case you haven't seen it, but I thought a magnificent ending to what was a magnificent season. You know, I'm going to admit, I liked Game of Thrones. I'll consider myself a fan. I'm a fan of Game of Thrones, the TV series. Haven't read the books, don't care. But I'm a fan of the show, but I was never like the biggest fan or a huge fan. It's not like I just salivated and couldn't wait till Sunday gets here so I can watch my next episode of Game of Thrones. I was never that. And then last season, season 6, I thought took a real uptick turn that got me even more invested. And I got to say, I think this season has turned me into a serious fan. This season of Game of Thrones actually turned me into that guy that was going, oh my God, I can't wait for Sunday to get here to watch the next episode. And it took me about 5 or 6 seasons to get to that point. That's fine, but a terrific season. Most importantly, a terrific finale to the season. They, closed a lot of story arcs. They've introduced a few new ones, setting everything up for the final 6 episodes. And yes, the next season of Game of Thrones, the last season of Game of Thrones, is just a pathetic 6 episodes. But there's no point in complaining about it. It is what it is. But I thought they did a great job with the series last night. Bravo to the showrunners, to HBO. Wonderful season and a wonderful finale. On a not so good topic, though, it was also a disastrous weekend for movies at the box office. Now, granted, there weren't any movies out at the box office that were expected to do big business. So it's not like this is completely a shock, but the top 12 movies, I made a video about this yesterday. The top 12 movies at the box office, all combined and added up together, didn't crack $50 million. It came in at like $49 million, which is the lowest total since September of 2001. It's been nearly 16 years since we had a weekend box office that was this low. Lowest weekend box office in almost 16 years. Now, granted, nothing big opened. There was that animated film Leap that only made about $5 million. There was 1 or 2 other films that were just small films. They weren't going to do serious business anyway. And then next week, nothing new opens in wide release. You've got Close Encounters of the Third Kind re-release in like 600 or 700 theaters. Next week is probably going to be an even lower box office than this weekend. The following weekend, it comes out, and then some bigger movies start to come out. You're going to see the box office take an upturn, but a terrible weekend at the box office. So, and I know 1 or 2 topics in here kind of have to do with that this weekend, and we'll get to those. Actually, it's the first question today. So without any further ado, let's get into the first question of the day. And the first question today comes to us from Dave A., who writes, I just saw your weekend box office vlog, which I was just talking about, and it made me wonder, since Moviepass became so inexpensive, one would think that more people would go to the movies more often, and it appears they're not. Even the theaters in midtown New York City were pretty empty. Does this mean that the fish ain't bitin' on Moviepass, or is this the true face of cinema's future? Well, thanks a lot for the question, Dave. Now, this is like 2 topics in one. The horrible weekend at the box office, and this ongoing story about Moviepass that's going on. Moviepass, for those of you who may have missed it, is that membership where you sign up for $10 a month, and you get to go to 1 movie a day every day of the month for $10 flat. Now, it sounds too good to be true. I did an entire video on this explaining the ups and downs and the limitations on it, but really, if it works, this is a terrific sounding deal. So they launched this thing where, I mean, it's been around for a while, but when I used to have Moviepass, it was $30 a month. And then I dropped it because they increased it to $40 a month. And at that price point, it just didn't make sense for me, so I dropped it. Now they came out, big announcement, we're dropping, all of our plans are now $10 a month, which is crazy good. So many people were signing up for it that their website crashed for 2 days. Like you just couldn't get onto their website for 2 days. So Dave A is asking here, so wait a minute, Moviepass is now out, but we had the lowest weekend. Is nobody buying Moviepass? Is nobody signing up for Moviepass? Quite the contrary. There are a couple things to keep in mind here. Moviepass, before they dropped it to $5, had about 20,000 subscribers. Those are the numbers that I'm finding in my research. There's about 20,000 subscribers before the price drop. The price drop, they grew over 600% in just a week. So they went from about 20,000 subscribers to near 150,000 subscribers in just 1 week. So yeah, fish are biting. So that's great if you're Moviepass. Lots of people are signing up to use the service. But just because 150,000 people are now signed up doesn't mean 150,000 people have their cards now. Because remember, once you sign up for Moviepass, they say it takes 3 to 5 days for them to ship you your card. I actually re-signed up for mine over a week ago, and I still haven't got mine in the mail. So mine is still coming. So even though a lot of people signed up, I'm sure there's a big chunk of those people who haven't received their cards yet. But even if that wasn't an issue, and I'm sure that is an issue, even if that wasn't an issue, there are still 2 other factors to keep in mind. Factor number 1, there wasn't a lot in theater that a lot of people wanted to see. More people need to see Lucky Logan. You got The Hitman's Bodyguard that has done okay. Hitman's Bodyguard's done okay, but it's going into it's now in its 2nd weekend. So a lot of people who were interested in it have already seen it. And then you had like Annabelle Creation, which is in its 3rd, going on its 4th week. So that's already been out for a while. Then you had these new release films that not a lot of people were really interested in the first place. So you got to keep that in consideration. Even though Moviepass sold a lot of memberships, number 1, not everybody got their cards yet. Number 2, there weren't a lot of movies out in theaters that people hadn't already seen that were interested in seeing. The 3rd thing, though, to keep in mind is this. Let's say everybody, all 150,000 people who signed up for Moviepass had their cards, and there were movies they wanted to see, and every single one of them went to the theater this weekend to go see a movie. Studies show that the average ticket price in America right now is about $9. I think that's the average. Some places it's a lot more expensive, like LA. It's like $15. Some places a lot cheaper. But they say the average ticket price is around $9. Let's round up to 10, okay? So let's say the average ticket price is $10 a ticket. Okay. So there are 100 now, brand new, 150,000 Moviepass members. If they all went to go see a movie this weekend, that's only $1.5 million. So the box office ended up being $49 million. Even if every single one of the Moviepass users went to go see a movie once, that's $1.5 million. It really wouldn't make that big of an impact in the overall box office. Now, if Moviepass grows to 4 million, 5 million subscribers, which it very well may at $10, $10 a membership. We'll have to see if word of mouth spreads and people really enjoy using the service and if it works. But at 150,000 subscribers, that's $1.5 million at the box office in total if every one of them went to go see a movie this weekend. So, yes, people are signing up for Moviepass. Yes, people are kind of getting the cards, but they haven't all got their cards yet. But that has nothing to do. I don't think the low weekend box office should make us look negatively on the Moviepass situation because of those 3 things I mentioned. There's not a lot of movies out this weekend that people wanted to see. Not everybody got their cards yet. And even though there are a lot of people getting the cards, even if they all want to go see it, it wouldn't have made that big of an impact on the box office anyway. So anyway, great question, Dave. Thanks a lot for sending it in. All right, now we move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters. This is a good time to plug my Patreon, guys. Doing 70 to 90 videos a month. I left the corporate world. I no longer work for a big corporation or have corporate overlords. I'm doing this all by myself, yet still putting out 70, 90 videos a month. I could use some support. And so a bunch of people have told me to start using Patreon, and I have, and a bunch of people are now my supporters. Consider becoming one of my supporters on Patreon. Check this link to see if becoming one of my Patreon supporters is something that's interesting to you. as a benefit to my Patreon supporters, I put all of my podcasts, my John Campea podcast, the Star Wars Talk Tuesdays, I put them all in audio-only form exclusively for my Patreon supporters. We've got an exclusive Patreon supporters Facebook group that we have chats in and things like that. And we have a weekly exclusive to Patreon supporters video chat. So, hey, check out the link and see if that's something you're interested in. Okay, enough with the stupid plug for the day. Now the question, of course, from Patreon supporter Noah Jordan, who writes, "Hey, John, I always wonder what you dislike about the MCU movies. I think the only thing wrong with them is that I can't get enough." Well, thanks a lot for the question, Noah. And yeah, MCU movies are hot. Comic book movie genre in general is hot. I'd say 9 out of 10 of the emails and questions I get for the John Campea podcast are usually comic book related. About 9 out of 10 of the topics and things you guys want to talk about are comic book related. Clearly a very hot genre. And the MCU is one of the big players in the comic book genre. And they're obviously very successful. Critics love them. Fans love them. They make lots of money, blah, 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 blah. But you know, no film is perfect. No film is perfect. And if we sat down, I could point to flaws in every single one of the MCU movies. Now, some of them have big flaws. Most of them don't have very big flaws, but they still have minor flaws, whatever. I mean, every movie has flaws, no matter how good or how bad. So in asking me, though, what do I not like about the MCU? I'm going to focus my comments to the things that I find spread across multiple problems that they have that spread across multiple numbers of their films. Not just one or two, but are problems that are kind of consistent through most, if not all, of their films. So the two big problems that I have with the MCU. Number one, I talked about this one in addressing another question yesterday, so I won't go too long on it, but it's the idea of the heroes and significant characters sort of dying. You know, I talked about this yesterday. Look, it's one thing if you never say a character dies, that's fine. But Marvel has played the card so many times. Oh no, look audience, this character has died. Oh, just kidding, they're not really dead. Oh, look audience, remember, this great character has died. Oh, just kidding, they're not really dead. Like, they have done that so many times now that if I go in to watch Thor Ragnarok and I see Hulk die, it's going to have no emotional impact on me because I'm going to know he's not really dead. It doesn't matter. They can have Suter cut Hulk's head off, and it won't matter. I'm not going to feel anything because I know he's not dead. I know he's fine because Marvel has gone to this well too many times. If I go to see Avengers Infinity War and, you know, I don't know, Hawkeye gets his torso ripped out, I'm not going to feel anything because I'm going to go, well, Marvel's done this 100 times. He's fine. I don't know how, but by the end of this movie, he's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. And so that's the big impact they have. They've gone to that well too many times. So I'd like to see them stop doing that. Either don't pretend to kill a character at all, or if you're going to kill a character, kill a character. I'm not saying you have to kill your characters, but stop the fake out killings. If you're going to kill a character, kill a character. If not, then don't. Either is fine. Just don't do the whole, oh, look, audience member, we killed a character. Just kidding. He's fine. Just stop doing that. That, to me, is a big pet peeve for the Marvel Universe. The other one is one we've talked about a number of times, which is, of course, their underdeveloped villains. Now, look, in any movie, there is a balance. You can't do everything in a movie. You can't have super develop this and super develop that and super develop this and super develop that and super develop this and have 18 things that are super developed. You can't do it. There's not enough time. So you do have to pick and choose about which things you're going to develop and which things you're not. And the Marvel system has been, and we've heard Kevin Feige talk about this, the Marvel system has been, people don't care about the villains. The villains are only there to further the story of the hero. Therefore, we're going to put 80% of our attention on the hero, 15 to 20% of the attention on the villain. And look, in Marvel's defense, it is a method that has worked for them. They keep their attention on their heroes, and that works. And if you were to put more attention on the villains, I understand this. If you put more attention on the villains, that means you got to take away attention from other places. I get that. However, it would be good once in a while to throw in a movie where it's really a hero versus the villain movie. Because right now, the vast majority of the Marvel films, Loki being a brief exception, The vast majority of the Marvel films are, it's the hero's movie, and by the way, here's a little pinch of this villain that kind of pushes along the hero's story. It would be nice once in a while if Marvel decided to do a true hero versus villain movie where you got like 55% of the screen time to the hero, 45% of the time, or even 60-40. It would be a big improvement to actually use some time on your villains. Now, that doesn't necessarily automatically mean it makes a better movie, but it would be nice to change it up, okay? Just once in a while. Again, I recognize that Marvel's system works for them. Fans love it, audiences love it, critics love it, box office loves it. I get it. It is a system that works. But keep your system fresh by throwing in a change up every once in a while. Give us a movie where, like, let's say if you have Red Skull come back, give us a movie where Red Skull gets 40% of the screen time, where you focus not as much, but almost as much of the movie on Skull in his battle against Captain America as you do on Captain America, just to mix it up. That would be really, really good. Now, I know other people complain about other issues like the amount of humor and stuff like that. I think their use of humor and their balance of humor with action, their balance of dramatic with the lighthearted, I think their balance is great. I think their balance is perfect. So I wouldn't touch that. I don't care about that. But yeah, fake deaths and underdeveloped villains are my two big pet peeves with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I do, but I would really enjoy it if they kind of address those two things. All right, thanks a lot for the question, Noah. And we move on now to the next question. And the next question comes to us from Paolo Lozupone, who writes, we've seen Christopher Nolan deliver excellent films during the last decade, surprising both critics and fans. Insomnia was a thriller, Interstellar, sci-fi, Dark Knight trilogy, the comic book genre, and Dunkirk, a war movie. Should he direct a Western next? It would certainly be an interesting choice for him. Yeah, look, all film is subjective. If you're not a Christopher Nolan fan, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. I will admit it befuddles me a little bit how people don't think Christopher Nolan is a great filmmaker. Not just because I find his films to be great, but he is a diverse director. As you just kind of pointed out here, Paulo, is that he has done sci-fi, he's done drama, he's done comic book genre. He's diversified himself in the way he tells his stories. He's not locked into one kind of story, He's just terrific. He's great. He's thrown in mystery there with not Insomnia, with Memento. He just seems to be able to do it all. Now, in asking if he wants to continue diversifying himself, which he doesn't need to at this point, he's plenty diverse. But if he wanted to diverse himself, could he do a Western? Sure. But I have a feeling, even though it would be a Western, it could still be very similar to one of the other films he's already done. And I've been saying this for a couple of years now, to really see Christopher Nolan take that next step in diversifying himself, and he's already diversified himself, but I mean take that next level, I want to see Christopher Nolan try his hand at a comedy. And look, he doesn't have to do it all by himself. He doesn't need to write the script, find a great comedy script, and let's see Christopher Nolan execute that script and really make it work on screen. Because we know Christopher Nolan can do just about anything else he sets his mind to. I would love to see Christopher Nolan take a crack at comedy. I would love to see if that artistic eye he has in understanding how what plays on the screen, how it hits the audience, and how it can be effective. I'd love to see if that translates over to comedy. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. That's fine. He's still a great filmmaker. But I'm telling you what, I'd pay a lot of money to see a straight up comedy with Christopher Nolan at the helm. I think it would be great. And you got a Joseph Gordon-Levitt in there, who he's worked with Joseph Gordon-Levitt many times. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is no stranger to comedy. You get him in there. I mean, I think it could be really fun and really special. So yes, a Western would be great. Straight up horror movie. There's another one. A straight up horror movie from Christopher Nolan. That could be really good. But if I could pick one right now, I would love to see a comedy. And I know a lot of people are now salivating at the idea of a Christopher Nolan horror movie. Okay, that would be pretty badass too. But yeah, I'll put my money right now on a comedy. I would love to see that. All right, thanks a lot for the question, Paulo. The next question comes to us from another one of my Patreon supporters. It comes from Robert Tabrizi, who writes, I was wondering where you think Ridley Scott falls in the conversation of best directors of all time. He doesn't have a perfect track record, but no directors really do. Considering the quality of movies that he has made, such as Alien, Blade Runner, Gladiator, The Martian, and so many other quality films, I was wondering why I don't hear his name more often when people talk about the best directors. Great question, Robert. And you know, Ridley Scott, he of course just put out Alien Covenant, which I'm going to be honest with you, I saw it early, and I really thought more people would love it. I didn't love the film, but I really enjoyed it. Which is something because I'm one of those people that I didn't quite enjoy Prometheus. I thought conceptually Prometheus was a great idea. I just didn't think it executed. I thought it was a little bit sloppy. But that aside, so I went into Alien Covenant a little skeptical, and I actually quite enjoyed Alien Covenant. And it still has like a 70% on Rotten Tomato. Don't get me wrong, most people like it. But I walked out of Alien Covenant thinking the vast majority of people are going to really like this film. And I was a little bit surprised to find out that they don't. I mean, the majority of people do. The majority of critics do. Yes, yes, yes. But I really thought it would be overwhelming. I thought it'd be like a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes and like a 97% audience rating. And it's not. It's very good numbers, just not that great. And I thought it would be better. So when you're talking about films like Alien, Gladiator, The Martian, Blade Runner, if you just have the conversation there and stop right there, then yes, you have to start getting into the greatest of all time directors group conversation. And you're right. Every director puts out, even the great Steven Spielberg made his, what was that awful one he did with Tom Hanks? The Terminal. I hated The Terminal. It's the only Steven Spielberg film I really don't like, but I mean, even Steven Spielberg has a bad day at the office. Even Scorsese will have a bad day. Everybody will have a bad day at the office. The problem with Ridley Scott, and by the way, I cannot underestimate, don't doubt for a second how much I love Gladiator and how much I love The Martian. And I think The Martian is a real testament to Ridley Scott's directing capabilities, but those aren't the only films he's directed. Ridley Scott, unfortunately, went on a couple of years, by couple I mean like 7 or 8 year streak, where he put out a lot of stinkers. A lot of stinkers. The Counselor he did with Michael Fassbender. That movie was, oh my God, it's bad. Like really, really bad. Body of Lies is another one he did. A lot of people hated Exodus, Gods and Kings. I didn't think it was terrible, but a lot of people didn't like it. Oh my God, his Robin Hood movie. The Ridley Scott Robin Hood movie with Russell Crowe is just absolute garbage. A Good Year. I think he directed Proof of Life. I'm not sure about that. I'll look that one up later. But anyway, the point is, he went through like a 7-year stretch where he put out stinker after stinker after stinker after stinker after stinker. And honestly, I think there were enough bad films and enough bad films in a row that kind of preclude and disqualify Ridley Scott from being in that who's on the Mount Rushmore of great directors, who's in that top 5 or 6 or 7, if you want, greatest directors of all time list. I don't think Ridley can be in that conversation. An argument can be made, though, for that next tier down of really great directors. Ridley Scott is a great director. There's no doubt about it. I mean, when you mention all the movies you talked about, Ridley Scott is a great director. He's capable of telling some great stories. He's never won the Academy Award for Best Director, but he has accomplished no small feat. Ridley Scott's been nominated for Best Director 3 times. That puts him in very rare company, being nominated for an Academy Award 3 times as Best Director. So Ridley Scott is a great director, probably that next tier down, but to me, he just put out too many bad films in a row to disqualify him from like the greatest of all time conversation, but definitely in that category of Hollywood's great directors that we will talk about for a very long time. So anyway, you guys may have a different opinion about it. Jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts on that. All right, we move on now to the next question. And the next question comes to us from Jay Eck. And Jay Eck writes, speaking of Ridley Scott, I've been thinking with the release of Blade Runner 2049 coming up, do you think that there will be a noir-style theatrical release? And of course, by noir style, he means black and white. The cinematography and vibrant colors look stunning, but this thought isn't so far-fetched because Mad Max Fury Road and most recently Logan have done a noir-style release. I would like to know your thoughts. Thanks and keep up the great work. Yeah, When Mad Max did its like black and white, everybody like buzzed online. Oh my God, it's going to be in black and white. It's going to be so amazing. When they did the Logan Noir, speaking of which, there you go. Logan Noir, I've got my copy right here. It's interesting. It's great. But I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not one of these guys who does backflips over the idea of, oh my God, they took the color out as black and white. This makes it amazing. It's interesting. But I'll be honest with you, black and white doesn't do anything for me. I think it's an interesting way to do it. I think it's a cool experiment. But watching Logan in black and white really didn't change the watching experience for me. It's just that it's missing color now. And don't get me wrong, some of the stills look stunning in black and white. In black and white, the stills look stunning. But watching the movie in black and white, for me, meh. I mean, okay, you took the color out. Wow. I mean, it's not that big of a deal to me now. I know some of you guys love it. That's the beautiful thing about art, man. Just because I didn't like it doesn't mean you're not going to love it. And that's great, and I celebrate that. That's awesome. But for me, I got to admit, it doesn't really do anything for me. So, I don't know. Blade Runner 2049, first of all, we haven't even seen the film yet. So let's see the film and get an idea about what it would look like. It does feel to me like it's a type of film that relies a lot on its colors and its use of colors and a lot of neon and a lot of stuff like that to establish their environments and things like that. So I don't know that it would work for that. But then again, I haven't seen the movie yet. So maybe I'll have a better opinion till then. But in general, I got to say the black and white trend honestly doesn't do much for me. It doesn't do much for me. So maybe you guys feel different. Jump into the comment section. If you do feel different, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Jump into the comment section and let me know why it really does work for you. All right, guys, and that's it. We move on now to the final question of the day. And the final question of the day comes us from Zacharias Tapp, who writes, "Hey, John, love your show. Thank you so much, Zacharias. Quick question. With Miles Morales being mentioned in Spider-Man Homecoming, I'm hopeful he will be included in Marvel/Sony's near future movies. When do you think they will introduce him to the big screen, and how could they do it? Thank you for answering." All right, thanks a lot for the question, Zacharias. First of all, your question's not quite accurate. You mentioned with Miles Morales being mentioned in Spider-Man Homecoming. Miles Morales wasn't mentioned in Spider-Man Homecoming at all. Now, what is true is that you had Childish Gambino. His character is Aaron Davis. And in the comic book universe, Aaron Davis is a character who has a nephew named Miles Morales. And he does, what he does do in the movie is he says, I have a nephew who lives in that neighborhood. I have a nephew. That's just a little wink. That was a wink. That was not, the Sony Marvel Spider-Man has now introduced Miles Morales. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. It was just a little wink to the fans, which worked because the fans got excited when they hear, he mentioned his nephew. We know in the back of our heads that that's kind of a mention of Miles Morales, but they did not mention Miles Morales. I could have been about it. That was just a wink. That was not them opening the door to bring Miles Morales into their universe. They're not. Marvel has just now got Spider-Man in their universe. They're not looking to bring in a second Spider-Man at this point. It's just not. However, you will get to see Miles Morales on the big screen if Sony's plan continues to work the way they're planning it out. They've got an animated Spider-Man movie coming. There's a standalone animated Spider-Man movie coming. And guess what? It ain't the Peter Parker Spider-Man. It's the Miles Morales Spider-Man. That's going to be the Spider-Man in the animated film. So they are doing that. Don't hold your breath for seeing Miles Morales pop up in the MCU. I don't believe that's going to happen. At least not for the foreseeable future. I mean, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the line, maybe. Anything can happen. Anything can change overnight. Absolutely. But they just got Peter Parker. And Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Peter Parker is going to be Spider-Man and the only Spider-Man for a long time in the movie world. Again, though, we've got an animated movie coming to scratch that Miles Morales itch that you have. But I really don't expect anytime soon to see a live action Miles Morales, at least in the MCU. Who knows what Sony has planned with their spin-off movies, their Venom movie, their Silver and Black movie, the other kind of plans that they have for their extended Spider-Man universe in Sony's playground. Maybe I still speculate that they might use a Miles Morales in there sometime, but as of right now, we've heard no plans. There's nothing definitive of it coming, and again, I just wouldn't hold my breath. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for me for this installment of the John Campea podcast. What do you think of this whole Miles Morales thing or any of the topics that we talked about here today? I want to hear from you. Jump into the comment section below and leave your thoughts. One more time, please consider becoming one of my Patreon supporters. And while you're here, take a second and click on the subscribe button. Become a subscriber to the John Campea YouTube channel. And also make sure you're following me on Facebook and on Twitter, just at John Campea. That'll do it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.